2. And video's live.
Well, would you look at that?
Okay. Cool.
Is this one on also?
They're all on.
Alright.
This week's episode was performed in front of a live studio. Screwed it up. Okay, never mind. Let's move on.
I don't know these people.
Okay. Hello, and welcome to episode 11 of the Jerusalem Hub audio experience.
11.
I'm Shalom Makowitz, COO and co-founder of Jerusalem Hub.
Yaron Pack, CFO and co-founder.
Aaron Melowitz, co-founder and CEO.
You don't have to point.
I want to point.
Wait, you have to cut me off while I'm talking?
I'm sorry, I apologize.
One more time.
Nah.
The purpose of this podcast is to show you our journey as we build this company and to kind of motivate you as well as motivate ourselves and teach you what we've learned as we go about our business.
And what we haven't learned.
And hopefully you guys can teach us, if you get involved, some of the things that we haven't learned and
that's
educate
actually
us as
true.
well.
Good point. We would love to hear from listeners, anyone, new listeners, old listeners. Shut the sound off on this computer at 100% for some reason.
Yeah.
We'd love to hear from you.
Percent's there.
Okay. Either way, let's move on with what we've got. So we have really exciting news. I'm gonna let him cover that, but just to say, we now have 2 new members of the Jerusalem Hub team. Go ahead. It's all yours.
All right. Well, the Jerusalem Hub crew is growing. Boop, boop, boop. That's the sound of growing. Just putting it out there. And
Doesn't sound like.
I don't know this guy.
whatever. So cut it out. All right, fine. Number 1 is Gary Waller. Gary Waller is our new web developer. Welcome to the team. And number 2 is our brand new editor-in-chief. Get your head in here for a second. Come on in. Just real quick. Come on
Just
in.
don't do that weird dance you were
Just real quick. Our very own Yehuda Makowitz. He's going to be our new content writer, and he's going to be editing any of our blogs and such and writing new content for us, so that's super exciting.
Speaking of which.
He also agreed to shave.
Right.
Oh, I did not. No. To that. My mother will be proud to hear that. Speaking of which, we now have a books page up on our website on books that we've read and we recommend with short descriptions written by this one, and you can trust him. He has read/listened to all those books, and we encourage you to both check them out, let us know what you think, as well as
But real quick, the purpose of this page, the books page, well, number 1 for us, it helps with SEO. But putting that aside, one of our missions besides helping startups get started up is educating ourselves, right? Which is totally selfish. Is we want to help educate others. How are we doing that? Well, we're educating ourselves and passing that learning along to you guys, to whoever is following us. So one of the ways we do is through this podcast where we discuss what we're learning and what we're up to, so you guys can kind of learn from that. But also, all the books that we read, we wanted to put it up on this books page with small descriptions. So if you guys are hearing something that you want to know more about, you guys either can get in contact with us or download those books via our page, the books page on JerusalemHub.com.
Right, on our page we actually have an offer. If you're going to use Audible, you get 2 free books to listen to on Audible just by going to our page and clicking on the link.
And Audible is super cool.
Audible is amazing. You can just listen to books on the fly. That's how we get through most of our books.
While you're working out, while you're working, anytime.
You don't need to sit down and have a book in front of you open. Just listen.
Also,
and
if you have any recommendations for us, stuff that you think we should read that would be beneficial for us, let us know. We want to know that you're out there because it allows us to continue what we're doing and it gives us the extra motivation to keep moving.
And then I have to read it in the description about it.
Yeah, so give him more work to do.
Okay, you can go now.
Yeah, does anybody want coffee before I go?
Yeah, sure.
I'll take a coffee.
I'm not actually going to get coffee for you.
He's a secretary too.
Wow, okay. So moving on to what we discussed and have started doing this week, we're not going to get into too much detail. But speaking of the books, we're implementing something that we learned from the 4-Hour Work Week. I don't know if you guys remember us talking about that, but it's one of the books that we read. It's highly recommended. And we're working on building what I call a web of income, trying to find ways to make alternative money, and which I think is beneficial for us, but for anyone as well, because if you can find ways to make money, like let's say for example you guys are hitting a snag in terms of revenue stream and you have alternative ways so that you can pay for your costs and all that stuff, it's good to have, especially if you want to invest, make future investments as well.
No, I like the idea. It's kind of like prepare, like you said, prepare for the future.
I mean,
it doesn't really matter. The point is diversifying. So not only are we dominating our market, or at least that's the intention, we're putting ourselves in other places as well. Put ourselves in as many places as well, make ourselves spread out, not like spread too thin, spread out, as much as just to be, as we say a lot, be everywhere.
As we've said in the past, and we're going to continue to say many times, we are casting out a wide net. So in the case that all else fails, or if certain areas fail, we can always pivot towards what's working, which means that there is no failure, there is no dying. That's
constant pivoting,
constant moving, constant pivoting, having our hands in every pocket possible. We also sat down, we discussed, again, another word we use all the time, optimization. We talked about how we can work on our productivity. I don't know if you've been following us from the beginning. Last couple of podcasts, we were talking about how we've kind of hit a snag, and that happens from time to time, and it happens in life. Besides for business, it always happens. And it was like a period of time where we could look at what has happened, look at what other people think of what we're doing. Because the funny thing is that I've begun to realize, can't really speak for other people, but I've begun to realize that a lot of people can see what we're doing as a big thing before we can even see that, which is huge. So it took us time to kind of realize that, and then we kind of we put some new gas in the tank, and now we're hitting it hard.
I thought it would be really interesting where, like you said, I mean, okay, just because this really blew my mind the other day. I was talking to Gary, our new web developer, and before we actually got to the nitty-gritty of things, I kind of asked him, I'm just really curious. He kind of been after us the past couple of weeks. What is it about us? Why do you want to be part of this so badly? And he said, well, besides me wanting to go in a place where I can develop my web developing skills and be part of a team, I heard your guys' podcast, I was at your event, and he just looks at me, he's like, you guys are going places. I want to be part of this. And so, and this is the type of thing where you don't think it yourself. You're like, okay, I'm doing what I'm doing. But when you hear that from outside sources, and a lot of people are critical these days. Most people are not afraid to just shut you down real quick. They'll say listen, if you guys are full of crap, you guys are full of crap. But I mean, we're getting a lot of positive feedback, and that's just, it's really encouraging. Yeah. It keeps our tanks full, which is why we want you guys to get more involved. For us and for you.
So just okay. You did that last time too.
That was an accident.
But
narcissistic a bit.
But basically, what we discussed is that as if you've been following us from the beginning, as most of you know, we all have our own schedules. And we have to try to find ways to put in the work to do everything, and we have to try to find ways to keep ourselves motivated, keep ourselves moving, and dedicated to the project. So we've collectively decided that we're going to sit and meet more than once a week, more often. We're going to be sitting and working together more often, because that's usually when we're more productive in getting things done and keeping ourselves motivated, amped up to get our work, to finish what needs to be finished, as well as building our relationship on a personal level, so that so our productivity can grow on a much greater level. I think both of those things are important. We've all agreed on it, and it's something that we take pride in. And the reason why we're sharing it is because if you're doing what we're doing, or if you're a step behind us, or whatever it is, if you have a team that you're working with, make sure that you guys are on the same page. Make sure that you understand what everyone's strengths and weaknesses are, checks and balances, because at the end of the day, if you have one flat tire, you're not gonna go anywhere, and you have to make sure that everything is moving smoothly. And we're slowly but surely beginning to realize everyone's different strengths and weaknesses, what people are good at, and how we're
flow into our spot.
Yeah, it's like we're beginning to optimize all of our efforts.
There's that word again.
Yeah, we're gonna use that a lot. It's we should probably do a content thing where we just have all of us say optimize.
Can we even just have
we have optimize, we have wherewithal. And
that's just me.
Can we just have an optimized page where it's just a page you click on the website and all it's just optimize, like an amazing voice, and that's it.
And another thing, for those who are listening that are building something or know people who are building something, we have a contact that we're trying to heavily utilize, and we're in the process of looking for people who are involved with agricultural technology as well as cannabis research. I know some people are excited about that. But if you are listening, or if you've heard this, or maybe we'll do like a small little snippet and put it out there. But if you're interested, if you're interested, or you know someone who's doing anything in that area, we are very interested in talking to you. In fact, I'm going to plug your email.
Sweet.
So you should email Aaron at Aaron.
AARON
at JerusalemHub.com. Maybe we'll do like a graphic thing.
Yeah, why not?
But if you're into doing that, then for sure, let's give it for now.
Yeah, we'll get back to it.
But that's like a big deal. Like that is, we are very much in that right now. We have a contact who's interested in that kind of stuff. So if you are doing that, I don't know how many times I can repeat myself to make to
just
reiterate that.
Keep on saying it, because whoever's listening, they really
agricultural technology and cannabis research. If you know anyone, or if you're doing it, let us know, because we want to talk to you and we want to help you. So I guess we'll move on to the next thing. That's pretty much what we're up to. Do you guys want to chime in on anything there? Is there anything you want to say? Oh, perfect, actually. Perfect timing. But either way, like, is there anything that you want to add to what we've learned this week?
This week has been kind of our rehab week. Let's put it like that, because we did hit a plateau, a wall, a little bit of plateau. The thing that we always talk about how, hey, we're all about helping people get over that wall. We hit the wall ourselves, and we were there for about, give or take 2 weeks. We were kind of slowed down. We all had our own personal things going on, or whether it was business related or not, doesn't matter. And this week has kind of been, okay, guys, we had a nice vacation, but it's time to jump back on that boat.
What's important to know is that it's only natural. It happens to everybody, on personal levels and on business levels, and it happens all the time. And you just have to kind of soldier on and buck up and keep moving. With that being said, we're going to move on to our current affairs. This is a special episode of Current Affairs. We have a guest. I'm going to let you do the introductions.
Yeah. So this week we have a special guest on our podcast. This is a man that I look up to as a role model.
You hope so, right?
You'd hope. And somebody who I aspire to be like, and it is, in fact, my father.
Luke?
My father, Darth Vader.
They're visiting all the way from Denver,
Colorado. He came out just to talk to you guys.
Shift over.
So we have
Okay.
Everyone's in the shot.
So just to fill you in, so basically our podcast is about whoever's listening, whoever's trying to get involved. We want them to learn about business, and it doesn't really matter what the specific subject is. The point is, we want people to be more educated. So we thought, okay, we wanted to start bringing up different people with different types of subjects, so people can just get a broader knowledge.
Also,
so this is something that you've been involved with for a long time, so you're really valuable to us and all the people.
Before we even start, I want to welcome you as our first official guest of the podcast, which is a huge deal. Okay, should I start? You want to start?
Okay,
I'll go. Fine.
Well, okay, here's what I'll say. All right, so my dad ran a recruiting business firm for over 30 years, right? For over 30 years?
32.
32 years. That's big. So he knows a little bit about running a business. So we had a question. Number one, a lot of people that could be listening or watching, if they are people that maybe starting their own business, but also they're just interested in business, they're going to get a job. Now, you worked in a recruiting business. Recruiting, for people who don't know, is when people are looking for jobs, sometimes they go to an outside source. You explain it.
What is an employment agency? You find people, you work with clients who are looking to hire people, you match people with jobs. So I placed accountants and financial analysts with corporations in Los Angeles. So I did that for 32 years. So some people call them headhunters, recruiters, executive search, it's all the same thing.
I like headhunters better.
Yeah,
all over LinkedIn.
Sounds more violent.
Worked with LinkedIn too.
Right.
But it's really, it's a matter of developing your clientele and then being able to provide them with the kind of people that they're looking for and knowing what they're looking for. So that's what a headhunter does.
So for those people not, just one of the first questions we had as far as like recruiting is concerned, and people looking for a job and all that stuff. We wanted to know what, in your mind, what are the most important factors for implementing a job interview when you're going to a job interview?
Okay, I will tell you, if you asked me after 32 years, what would be the number one complaint hiring managers have about candidates and interviews, is that they don't get detailed enough. Because what happens is a lot of people use buzzwords. Let's say you've got an accountant and he's interviewing with people who are the controller or the CFO or the VP of finance, and the accountant will say there and say something like, well, I handle the financial statements. That can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people, and you have to obviously translate this into your own industry, whatever you're doing. It can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. There's nothing wrong with saying it, but you have to follow it up with what I mean by that is, and then get detailed. And then get detailed in a manner not just like you're relaying information like you do every day on a day-to-day basis at work, which is what I call the day-to-day way of being, because that's fine for work. But in an interview, you want to leave people with the sense that they were standing there watching over your shoulder, and they have the experience of having actually watched you do the job, not just got the information, which is what you do at work. So I tell people, you want to offer them more detail. Now sometimes you don't know the hiring manager, what their style is, you know what your boss is, so sometimes your initial answer might have enough detail, so you want to offer them the opportunity to tell you what they want and they don't. So you might give an initial answer and then say, would you like me to go into more detail on that? They'll tell you whether they want it or not. So many times I'll have managers say to me, we like this guy. This guy went into detail. We really had a sense he knew what he was doing. And it really leaves a sense that you knew what you were doing. Also, it also gives them a chance to really hear you communicate. So that would be a fundamental that you could take away from you.
Communication.
I think that's really well put. Just the point is, you sound more like you know what you're talking about when you really,
You come across like you know what you're talking about.
Right.
They can hear how you communicate, and to a certain degree, they can hear how you think, because you have to process through something. You have to have a beginning, middle, and an end of it.
All right.
It's interesting because I did that. I was at an interview for a previous job, and the way I got it and I was hired on the spot is because we were talking about a certain subject, and I gave him a strategy of how I would go about it, like a very detailed strategy. And boom, called me up next day. Well, he was gonna pay me lower, and I said I want to get paid more, and he said, okay, we'll give you what you want, and you got it. It worked.
When you walk out of that interview, you want them to look at each other saying, this is the guy.
Right.
Let's get him in here, stop all the other interviews, let's nail it down, and they'll offer you more money based on that.
I think you told me once, which I think this is great for anybody who's watching and might be looking for a job, is you may not want the job, but when you go into the interview, you go into, with the intention, I'm getting the job. At the end of the day, whether you take the job or not, that's a different story. But you want to walk out of there and you have the offer on the table.
Do you want me to speak to that a little?
Sure.
Go for it.
So the other aspect, well, I call it strategic interviewing. Many people go to the interview with the intent that they're going to find out whether they like the job or not, which makes sense, obviously. The only trouble is the hiring managers pick up that your intent was to find out whether you like the job or not. So I call them up afterwards. They say to me, you know, after thinking about it, this is a job for me. I'm ready to be enthusiastic now. Call the hiring manager. The hiring manager says that was a good candidate, but it seemed like they were just shopping around. We were hoping to meet somebody who was actually interested in us. So the coaching for candidates when you're interviewing is make it a primary intent. I'm not going to say this out loud, but the primary intent is the reason I'm here is to receive a job offer. Now inside of that, you'll find out about the company. But when you make that your intention, you come across more focused, more interested, and more enthusiastic, and it just lands very differently with the hiring managers.
That's awesome. So it's not only about your skills, it's about the way you present yourself.
Attitude.
Or, as we say, who you're being in the face of that.
Because
Okay.
we're all human beings, we can sense feelings and emotions out of people. You could tell when someone is very low in energy, and you could tell when someone's very high in energy. And obviously that's what they're trying to exchange.
So okay, so that's awesome. So So in addition to doing the recruiting gig, if you call that a gig, for 32 years, my dad started a real estate investment company. He's been doing that for the past, 2 years now? 2 years?
3.
So we're really interested in, and I know a lot of people are, because that's really a lot of people's end games, build your assets. We want to know, how did you start it? What was your process like in the beginning? Because, and just really quickly, and this really interests us because the way we started was we just kind of went, let's go, let's make it happen. And I kind of feel like maybe that's just the way to do it. But somebody who's experienced and knows that, we want to hear it from you.
Well, I have a coach I use for business, and so this is part of the business. So my phone calls to the coach would go like this: I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. And I just kept taking the next step. And really, it was a willingness to leap into something unknown and tolerate the anxiety that went along with that.
And the micro failures.
And the micro failure, right?
You know that feeling.
And just tolerate it and keep going to the next step.
Don't let anyone stop you.
Consistent persistence. Where did I hear that from?
That's like we all read the 10X Rule by Grant Cardone, and he says, and I was just listening to this week, he says, overcommit and then figure out the rest later. He's like, jump into the pool and then learn how to swim. Now, I wouldn't do that if it was a pool, but when it comes to business and when it comes to things that are related to just life in general, that's the way to do it.
Unlike swimming.
Unlike swimming, right? Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that in swimming.
It's nice to hear that we're on the right track.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a really good. That's really awesome. I'm gonna take this.
Yeah, go for it, please.
Cool. So aside from all the real estate and all that stuff, what I'm curious about, and I'm sure they're curious about it as well, since we're just starting up, what was it like to get from point A, from the beginning to point B? Like just to be more specific.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it was difficult in the beginning. I'm sure it was difficult in the, throughout the whole journey. But, was it hard? How did you keep yourself motivated? What kind of routines and practices have you implemented over the years? Keep yourself on track. Keep yourself moving. And what are you actually? That's good enough. Yeah.
So it's looking for the next deal.
Okay.
You got to keep looking for the next step. It's you got to stay in action. So it's what's the next action I can take, because you can get distracted by the chatter in your head.
Right. No, I know that.
Yeah.
I know that well.
Chatter.
The chatter in your head will distract you. When the truth is, the only thing that makes any difference is either taking action or not taking action.
Right.
So for the real estate, is you got to keep looking. I have a certain profile I'm looking for in a house, and I'm looking around the country in the states, and so we go to different cities. And we look to see if properties, you can look at Zillow or the various real estate sites. You can try to see what fits into that profile that's going to generate that kind of return. And then we fly to the city, and we get a real estate agent, we get a property manager, we go start looking at the things. And you have to spend time on it. And there's a constant chipping away at it. So
massaging the deal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And a lot of self-education as well.
Yeah, you got to take the next step. There's always the next step.
It's interesting because this is the type of thing you can't go to school to learn this. I feel like I think there's certain parts of it you can, but is there really like a school you go to learn how to
I don't
start
know.
a business?
The school of experience.
You're talking about real estate?
Well, really any business.
Well,
Is there a school of
The other
start?
headhunting, I got 3 other degrees,
Wow.
which has nothing to do with the headhunting.
Right.
And I just dove in. I found myself a mentor.
Oh,
That's a big deal.
I found myself a mentor, and I allowed myself to be coached by the mentor. You got to be willing
That's
to be
hard to do.
coached.
yes.
That's a hard
Finding
thing to
mentors
do.
easy, allowing him to coach you.
Finding
is
mentor is
hard
not
part.
necessarily easy. It's hard, but what's way harder is to be like willing to just be wrong and just whatever he says, just go or she.
That's
Like,
right.
okay, that's what they said to do. They know what they're doing. Just do it. Just don't even ask questions.
that
Just
one.
What
do it.
was before it's hard. It's good to have a mentor. It's good to allow yourself to be coached by the mentor. That I can assume that probably took a lot of time to finally commit to doing that. When you were talking before about how you were the whole self-talk thing, and you just kind of have to disregard that and keep moving. What did you do? What kind of practices did you implement to kind of to kind of shut those up in order to keep moving?
All right, it's a question of staying in reality or in the story I have about what's going on.
Yes, that's a great way of putting it. Thank
So,
you.
and this is what my coach trained me in. There's what actually happens, and then there's a whole interpretation about what happens that goes on. When I just stay with what's actually going on, in the real estate deal, for example,
Yeah. Can you make it like put it in a practical example so it's like easy for anybody to observe it?
yes. So you put a house under contract, let's say, and then all of a sudden all sorts of stuff starts to pop up. So the internal dialogue is, oh, I made an error, or you bought a house,
Right.
and then somebody comes in to work on the house and they pull a wall off, and then you have surprises. So the internal dialogue might be something like, I blew it, this is terrible, it's a terrible loss.
Right.
Being the reality is, okay, so what choices do I have?
Mm-hmm.
You can fix the thing this way, that way, the other way.
Mhm.
Just fix it. Move on to the next thing.
Right.
Because that's what's
Yeah.
there is to be done.
This is
Part of the
perfect because
process.
this is exactly what we're going through.
Yeah, I just want to like say
Yeah.
it real quick. Whoever's listening out there, that what he just said is, he said it so passively, but it's insanely important.
Yeah.
Because it's like, because there's what's going on in your head, which it means absolutely nothing, and then there's what's in front of you, which means everything. And usually, what's in front of you is so much easier to fix than what's going on in your head.
Yes. And you know you're in reality when it starts to get simple. It's like having a flat tire. Flat tires don't complain. They're just flat.
The people
You know-
who have the flat tires complain.
Right. So you can kick and scream and have a temper tantrum after the flat tire. At the end of the day, you're still going to have to fix the tire.
Right.
So you might as well just fix the tire without all the other drama around it.
Mm.
So I mean, that's one
Okay.
way to.
No, that's
That's
great.
perfect.
That's
You
great.
answered my question perfectly. Thank you.
Right, don't put your mental energy into the problem and complaining about the problem. Use your mental energy to
Find the
approach the
solution.
actual problem and fix it.
Right. Find the solution.
And it becomes simple at that level. When you're there, it's simple. That's how you know you're back in reality again.
Yeah.
Right.
It gets simple.
I've actually experienced that
Yeah.
many times. That is a good point. So just to we have a couple more questions just to close things off. If they're too loaded of questions, just let me know. In the whole journey from beginning to end, whether it's when you started studying to starting recruitment, you can.
Well, I was going to say like basically, I specifically wanted to focus on the real estate aspect because I think that's personally.
Oh, is that what's
I don't know.
okay, fine.
That just I find that really interesting.
So then I'll ask my
But-
question and
yeah,
you
go
can
for
ask
it,
your
please. Yeah,
question.
go.
So from the beginning to end, as far as your career, what you've done in the past till now, what would you say are things that you've done right, and what would you say are things you've done wrong? If that's even an answerable
Looking
question.
back over, talking about the real estate or the headhunting, which is 32
Just throughout the
Well,
whole.
you know, specifically your whole career of
Yeah, your whole career.
being a small business owner and just going through
Thank
the whole.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I
The
meant.
whole
General
process.
processes.
I think in being a small business owner, under the category of wrong would be it's easy to be isolated,
Okay.
and that's not a good idea. Even though I'm on my own because I ran my own business, but to be in contact with other people, like create network
Right.
and stay in touch with other people. I think
Ah.
the times that I allowed myself to be isolated was a mistake.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I would say.
So they work one. So you're saying that the right thing to have done was just keep that network, but the wrong thing that you did was neglecting that network,
at those times. Yeah.
So-
which is very, very, that pertains a lot to what we were doing.
Oh.
Which
Wrong about the network.
100%.
answered my question perfectly.
So what I want to I want to use those same two questions, but kind of like purpose them, I guess.
Yeah.
So specifically in the area of your real estate company,
Okay.
what's one thing? I mean, I know there's a number of things, but what's
Okay.
one thing that sticks out in your mind right now that you have done right thus far?
Deciding on a profile of what I wanted to buy.
Okay, so you decided this is my goal, and I'm not looking for anything else, and that's kind of help you narrow down, just to keep it simple and keep your head
Yeah.
straight.
Otherwise, there's always another house you can go.
Right.
Interesting.
It's all.
Yeah.
It's endless.
Okay.
I decided what we wanted to accomplish in terms of the return on the investment.
Okay.
A second.
And we have a profile.
Start again on that.
we stick with that profile.
Okay.
Right.
So basically, by creating that goal, so this is very relevant to us also. You create that goal, and then you let the goal pull you toward, or you let that pull your actions.
That's right.
So you have this goal, and you're like, okay, it needs to fit this profile for
What
us
do I have to do to get there?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and there's some flexibility inside of that, but it basically cuts out a lot of other stuff, so you can stay focused, and it's a narrow window.
It's funny. I thought you would have said. I mean, that's a great answer. I thought you were going to say that you're very, very specific and you're very, very picky.
Oh,
Which in some places could be a weakness or a blessing. But
what I do is I call my son and I ask his advice.
Because I'm
See,
clearly the real
way to
estate
do it.
expert. Because I've been doing that for all 25 years of my life.
Guru Buddha.
I actually do call him in. I bounce ideas off of him
Yeah.
because I like it, and he's got good input for me.
Alright, just
Right, and then quickly on the other side of that,
Oh,
and then Shalom's
exactly,
gonna, what's one thing, specifically in the area of your real estate company, that you've done wrong? And I know it's been nothing that's been so critical, life or death, because obviously you're still going. But,
you can allow yourself to get emotional
ah,
about a piece of property and then pay more than you should have paid.
okay.
so that's kind of similar. That's basically like the topic. Like we talk about that all the time. It's kind of similar to the whole self-talk thing. Like listening to what doesn't matter. Like you've made the move. Now you have to figure out how to deal with the move that you made.
Because in the real estate, it really should be about the numbers. If you're buying a house for yourself, then the emotions play a lot because
Right.
you feel you want to enjoy the house,
Connect
the proud of
to
the house,
it.
and all that, and the neighbor and all. But when it's an investment, it's really got to be just about the numbers.
I hear that. Okay. Cool. I mean, do we have any other questions? Because we covered everything that we prepared for this special.
Very good.
Is there anything
Those are
to
great
say?
questions. I was surprised by it. I didn't even look at them yet.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
surprised as I was writing them out, to be honest with you. Okay, well then, if that's the case, thank you for joining us. This was
Thank you. Very nice to meet you.
This was a good beginning to having
Aw.
interviews. I don't no hug for me. Okay.
You're too Jewish for it.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you very much. Okay, so that was current affairs,
That was awesome.
and that was pretty awesome.
Very
That
useful.
went really well.
Yeah.
He's still in the room, so let's talk about him. He's in the room in the background.
All right.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to our next section of this podcast, Uncut from the Heart.
I love this section. I just want to put that out there.
Oh, okay.
So, it is Shalom's section. Yes, I'm not going to take credit. Okay. Jeez.
In any sense, so we're going to discuss, like, I'll just start off. Basically, as we've been discussing throughout the beginning of this podcast, and we've said it before, but we've begun to realize that the momentum is shifting now. Like, we went from a somewhat of a plateau, which, again, is totally normal, and now we're kind of, like, moving, and things are moving fast, and at a bigger and better pace. There's a lot of really cool things that are happening that we're not going to share because we're like that. But
You can move in, by the way.
no.
But you don't have to.
Okay. No, but yeah, there's a lot of really cool things happening, and what I find to be very interesting about things like beginning to take shape is that what we were afraid of before this plateau, we are now no longer afraid of. We're just like I don't care anymore.
That
Let's
is
just do it.
Interesting point.
That's what I
You know,
noticed.
that's great. I didn't even think about that. That just hit me right the second when you said that. There were a few things that we were dealing with, specifically in the area of we've talked about it, monetizing, going to that next step.
Yeah.
And for all three of us, there's no denying it.
We're
It scared
scared.
us. It still scares us. But I think a couple of times we've got into that wall. We'd be like, back off, sit down.
Yeah.
And then we did it again. And then back off, sit down. And this is the first time where it's like, okay, are we gonna keep on doing that? Or there you go.
That's all
Are
you
we
gotta
gonna
do.
keep on doing that, or is it time to get to the next level?
Start making money happen.
Yeah, this is something I was talking about with my dad the other day, my parents the other day. I forgot what I was gonna say.
That happens sometimes. In any sense, what that means is, just to be more specific, is that when it comes to actuality, when it comes to like making money and making actual deals and keeping your network, which is scary to be in touch with people, especially when you're like, who the hell am I to be talking to this person with millions of dollars?
Right.
It's that we don't care anymore. That's over. That fear is over. We were once children, and now we are still children, but just slightly older.
I
Right,
remember.
It's kind of like our fear
Yeah.
of starting events.
True.
After our first event, we're like,
Which, like,
oh
now
my
it's
gosh.
nothing.
Like I remember, we're like, should we do it? What are we gonna
Right.
do? And I'm like, let's just do it. And then we do the just do it thing.
And so going back to that also is once you start making money, once you have real paying clients, until now it's a project. Let's be honest. It's a great
Yeah.
project that has a lot of potential, but it is a project. The second you take on a paying client, you have responsibility and you're accountable. Now, by the way, I
Which
do
is probably
think
the next fear.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
by the way, I believe that the three of us are going to do better at that than most people. It doesn't change the fact that it's scary.
Really now.
Oh, absolutely, I do. Because I see like a lot of people in business in general, they're just not accountable to themselves or to the people that they're working with. I think that's something that we're going to do right, but it doesn't change the fact that it's still scary. And aside from mistakes, that happens obviously, but we're very self-aware about that, and I'm just really excited that we're breaking through that right now. We're in the process right now, and that's just
Yeah.
really cool.
Is there anything that you wanted to add there, Aaron? Or you just...
I think I just threw that in.
Oh,
I said
cool.
before.
Okay, I just, I don't want to, I know you're like all the way over there, I just don't want
Mhm.
to.
We don't want you to feel left out.
But, in
I
any
like
sense...
I like where this is going. This is a good one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in any sense, like, as a whole, the momentum is up and down. And things are shifting, things are looking really good, and there will be a point in time where we will hit a snag, but because we've moved so far, and we're doing things like this podcast, for example, to help motivate us and keep us dedicated and keep us accountable to ourselves as well as our team, it allows us to realize what we've done and how far we've come, and there is no stopping now.
Yeah.
And it's all about the, I'll just add this in now.
Yeah.
It just popped in my head. What allowed us to move forward is the fact that we are solution oriented.
Mm-hmm.
Like we hit walls, snags, or whatever, or what have you, but we didn't back down on like how could we get over those, and we figured that out. And that's part of what we want to provide for other companies that we hopefully will be helping, other startups. You're going to hit the same walls that we already hit, and you could either go through all of our podcasts and figure out how we did it, or you could ask us.
That's the motivation right there. If you want to know how to do it, listen to all the podcasts.
Right.
I mean,
and we did it. We overcame everything, and we
That's
still have more stuff to overcome, and we're gonna keep figuring that out.
It's quite a journey.
It's a figure out game.
Think about it. If we can't do it ourselves, our whole game is we're going to help you as a business to get over these bumps and hills. If we can't do it ourselves, how are we supposed to do it for you? Like,
Exactly.
that's the whole
Right, and
true.
there's also another thing, like what was one of the main things, at least that I noticed in pushing a business forward, pushing to the next step, is once we start taking money or get involved with a client, we have responsibility.
Mhm.
And what is everyone afraid of?
Responsibility.
So when you see the responsibility at the door, you're like, maybe I'll go out. But, and maybe that's what we were feeling at the time.
So another thing that I want to say, like as far as like value of momentum when it comes, because when things go up and down, just as anything would, even if you're running a business or if it was on a personal level, I'm sure we can all agree that life has its ups and downs. It's part of life.
Yeah.
And what I think was the most beneficial, and I think I touched on it earlier, was the fact that like we kind of hit that kind of flat plateau, and we were like, and it gave us time. It was like kind of like we were in a clouded area where it gave us time to like think, and then like realize how other people see us and how we should then see ourselves, as well as like say, okay, this is what we've done till now. So what's not working right now, and then kind of like take that as like a growth experience, and then say, okay, now we understand what we've done. It's time to move to the next level.
Right.
So just so people are aware, whatever it is that you're doing out there, or even on a personal level, you go through, you have your highs and you have your lows, but your lows, even though they're not fun, they're so necessary because it allows you to realize where you've come and now where you have to now grow. Is it anyone else want to chime in on that?
No, you're
Grow and go.
growing.
Now there's something, this I'm actually kind of proud of. We might add to this in the future, but on Friday night, me, Yaron, and my brother we were having a very intense conversation.
Oh yeah.
A very intense conversation, and this is going to be something that I think we're going to try to stand by and try to define as we go along.
Right. Yeah, no, this is definitely not something that you just talk about right now and then it's over. This is
So we have what's called Jerusalem Hub's 4 cornerstones to success.
Interesting.
TM.
You're gonna like this one. So the 4 cornerstones to success: 1, confidence; 2, motivation; 3, dedication; 4, health. So why confidence? Confidence because you have to have the reason for what why you're doing. You have to say, this is what I'm doing and I'm going to do it.
On the confidence point, and this is something that you said that really stuck with me in my mind,
Okay.
was, we went through, so on Friday night.
If I said it, I'm gonna be quiet.
Yeah. So on Friday night, we had gone through all 4 of these in like real depth.
In detail, yeah.
Yes. And the one of them, like all of them are great, but the one that stuck out for me was the confidence. And we defined, what is confidence? I mean, there's a number of ways to define confidence, but in this specific area, something that we defined is, where do you find confidence in your life? And what we came up with is, you have confidence in places where you're competent. What I mean is, if you're really good
Thank you for
at,
that.
yeah, if you're really good at skateboarding, right, you're confident at that. Why? Because you're competent at it, because you're good at it. So therefore, the key to confidence is practice, practice, practice. But obviously practice right, but keep on doing that to the point where you're so good at it, you've mastered it, now you're good at it. So there's no reason to feel a lack of confidence about that. You know you're going to succeed because you just like ground it into your head. Like, I know how to do it. I don't need to, when you're driving, after you've driven for 5-10 years, you don't think about how to drive anymore. It just kind of happens.
Right.
That's true confidence, true mastery.
So I would say that's one dimension of confidence.
No, sure.
I had a different approach.
Sure.
You're not
Because
allowed to talk, though.
I'm going to talk anyway because I wasn't involved in this conversation. And so like the confidence you're mentioning, I think belongs more in the, like, I mastered something, and it's more of like a second nature type of confidence. There's also another type of confidence where you begin unsure of yourself, and in any aspect, and it's just the idea of approaching a new thing with confidence, meaning maybe I don't have full knowledge of a certain aspect of something, but I know that eventually I could be better and understand this specific skill or whatever it is. So it's the confidence in yourself, in knowing that you can accomplish that, even though you're not really there yet. Like the confidence in yourself that you could start learning how to skateboard, and that confidence drives you to get good at it, or the confidence in any skill that you need in the workforce. For example, one of the day jobs I have now is I'm working in PPC, and they were looking for a PPC expert, which I was not. I kind of winged it on my CV, and I'm like, oh wait, I'll figure it out. I'll just be resourceful at the time, and I got the job that way. But I was confident about the fact that I knew I could, even though I wasn't confident in my abilities at the time, because if you match me up with any actual real PPC expert, then I will be nothing compared to them. But the fact that I was able to be confident in the fact that I know I could, I was confident more in myself more than the job.
Right.
Like, I know that I'm a capable person in doing anything that I put my mind to, so I expand that to something else. So it's less of being a mastery, but more of a self-awareness.
That sounds like confidence in the area of courage.
Well,
You know?
I was actually, just so I can fully understand what you're saying, basically, the confidence is coming from putting yourself outside of your comfort zone. Because the interesting thing is that when people are comfortable, they're not like, they're comfortable. They're not going to do anything. But when you have, and I'm going to add courage to it,
Yeah,
when
sure.
you take yourself outside of your comfort zone and you say, I'm going to figure it out and I'm going to learn this new skill, it then gives you the courage to have the confidence to see it through.
Right, so there'd be two dimensions basically. There's a confidence in yourself and a confidence in a specific ability that you have.
I don't remember where I read it, but it's such a great quote. It said, if you want to master life, you want to be great at everything, get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's kind of exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like, you're confident about that because, and the truth is, that's something that you're good at. I think that to some extent it's something that we're all somewhat good at. But in this specific area, it seems like you have more in that. And you're confident about that because you are getting comfortable, and you are pretty comfortable being uncomfortable. That's the name of the game for this.
Well, truth of the matter is, you're also comfortable being uncomfortable.
Sure.
You just haven't pinpointed what those things are exactly.
Yeah.
Sure. But I was just talking
What do you
specifically
think?
about his example.
Superman? What is this?
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is
basically
Superman.
It is a lot of work to get to that point. I won't deny that.
So as you
Self-work.
just realized, that was cornerstone number 1.
Yes.
And it can be defined in so many ways.
Right.
But we're going to move on to number 2, so stop talking.
All right.
Okay, cool. The next one is motivation. Motivation is your why. What's your reason for doing what you want to do? I don't think that needs to be explained. And
I think it does. There's more you could say about like what is the actual motivation. Because let's say, is your motivation money? I think most people's motivation for money isn't really a motivation because
Very few people are actually looking for money.
yeah.
I think it's more motivation. Like if you were to say specifically, what's my motivation for my end goal? It'd
Yeah.
be for scenery, like what you have around you, like family, house, you know, whatever it is that you're aspiring to.
Well, expand on that. Like I was saying, very few people actually want money. Who wants green pieces of paper?
They want
People want what it can get them.
Right.
It can get them satisfaction. It can get them fun. It can get them a comfortable lifestyle. It can get them a cool car. That's what people want. They want that feeling of confidence they get from it. They want that feeling of accomplishment from it. They don't actually want money. That's not really a why.
So like motivation could be almost under the same aspect of passion.
Yeah.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
True.
Yeah.
But then passion would go on to the next cornerstone,
Which
like
is-
because
They're
they all
all
work
interchangeable,
hand in
yeah.
hand.
Mm-hmm.
Passion would go on to the next cornerstone, which is dedication,
Or persistence.
persistence, right?
Right.
If you are both confident and motivated about what you're doing, then you have to put in the work. You have to be dedicated.
Right.
You have to be persistent.
Motivation is like the first push, and then
Right.
the dedication
Exactly.
is the continuation.
That can be expounded on like
Yeah.
in so many ways.
Motivation doesn't always last very long. Like, I mean, everyone, I feel like anybody who's ever been motivated in their life, you know how you watch a motivational video, you get this cool idea, and you're super jacked up about it for like what? Like 20 minutes, 2 hours, 2 days, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, now what? And that is where dedication kicks in.
Right.
And that's where we were talking about the value of momentum. That's where that kicks in. The motivation gets you pushing the car down the, you know, towards the hill. But once it starts rolling, right, the dedication is gonna be the thing that keeps on going. That keep on pedaling,
It's
even if
interesting.
it hurts.
Someone pointed out that
Yeah.
there's millions of hours of motivational videos watched every day.
Mhm.
The question is, why isn't there so many successful people because of all this
Because it's
motivation?
not the whole full.
Because they're not
Yeah.
taking the action. They don't have the other steps.
The last cornerstone is health. Health meaning physical, mental, and emotional health.
Right.
To know when to properly balance everything and keep things in check. It is
Right.
insanely important because it keeps you clear-headed, it keeps you clear-minded, it keeps you. It allows you to be able to keep your eye on the prize as opposed to what's going on, which is exactly what we were talking about with your father.
Right.
About how don't listen to what doesn't matter and pay attention to what's more practical. If there's any way that I can sum it up, I remember I explained it really well that Friday
No,
night.
this is good.
But if the reason why I say cornerstone is that imagine you have like a house with 4 walls. Each wall is one of the is one of the things. You have confidence, motivation, dedication, and health. If you're on one side of the room, then you're only utilizing 1 or 2 of those aspects. If you're on the other side, the same thing.
Right.
The point is that you want to be in the middle of the room so that you're exposed to all 4 walls. That's the
Right.
goal.
Right.
The goal is because there are times where we're confident, but we don't have the dedication.
Yeah.
Right? There are times where we're motivated, but we're not confident enough to see it through. There are times where we're healthy, but we don't know where to take it to the
We
next
don't have
level.
right.
Right? So the idea is that if you can imagine the 4 cornerstones of success, you imagine you have to be in the middle of the room. If you're on this side, then you got to kind of shift it so that you can get the outlook on everything. Does that kind of make sense?
Right.
Explain
And
that
the way
well?
you explained it, which I thought was really good on Friday night, is you said, and once you find the balance between those 4, boom, you've won the level. You break through to the next level, and then you need to find those 4 things again in the next level,
Right.
whatever
and you
that
become a
is.
unicorn.
And then,
Yeah.
yes.
Like I said, it was a very intense conversation. This can be expounded on and talked about
Yeah.
for hours.
We want to know your thoughts on it.
hours
So,
on it. But yeah, of course. Let us know you're out there. Let us know what you think about that. We're definitely probably going to do a little snippet of that so it gets exposed
Yeah,
to
I
more
definitely
people.
want to put that up as like a.
But that
Piece of
that
content.
is
Yeah.
that is this week's section of Uncut and From the Heart. I think that was pretty good.
Yeah.
We're just gonna move on towards the end of this.
Amazing.
Books. I'm still in the middle of the 10x rule because I'm working on optimizing my productivity
Optimization.
and my dreams and my goals and trying to like add more to my plate. Football season ended, unfortunately, so now I have a lot more time on my hands and I have to figure out what to do with that time. So that's why I'm kind of revamping that whole. I'm like going back to the drawing board.
Mhm.
What do you got?
Yeah, I'm reading 2 books right now. I'm reading.
Get out. I will punch you.
Okay, fine.
Good.
The 10X Rule by Grant Cardone. I'm right at the end of it. Such an awesome book. And then secondly, and this book is a real like mind teaser because it's a little bit weird. The book is called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. I did not bleep it out because there's a very specific purpose for why it's called that. The guy does not go easy. He's using the F word the whole book, but the point is he wants to be intense because he wants you to get the point. Who's it written by?
Oh God, Mark Manson, I think. No.
Mark Manson?
Mark Manson.
Okay, this book, I picked it up just because I was like, hey, it would be cool to be that guy who just doesn't care about anything, right? You just kind of go through life, do what you want to do, don't care about the consequences, which is not what the book's about at all.
Doesn't sound like it's
No, it's not about that at all. But he's trying to. It kind of comes back to what we were talking about, confidence in a way.
Yeah.
And also, everyone gives a shit about something.
True.
So he's like, even the people that say they don't, they do. They just give it about things that are irrelevant, so it looks like they don't. So he's trying. His point is, kind of centering it in a way that actually makes a difference in your life. That's it.
Simply put, it's 200 plus pages of tough love.
Oh, it's great. It's awesome.
Right?
Yeah,
Great.
definitely.
I gotta get on that one.
What are you reading?
So I've been snailing my way through naked statistics because I'm trying to learn other stuff besides motivation. But I'm also gonna pivot a little bit into more of mental health, well-being style books like Think and Grow Rich,
That's
Napoleon
such a
Hill.
good book.
I think I'm gonna start that one soon.
It's such a good book.
And I want to start like implementing more of that stuff, the meditation, and just getting my head straight.
Well, as we mentioned before, these books are working for us. I've read the 10X Rule at least 5 or 6 times. It's helped me throughout the journey. We also mentioned before how we're now implementing stuff from the 4-hour work week.
Yeah.
Like this is self-education. This is part of if you
very
have
important.
to put in the work, you have to be dedicated in order to see things happen and see things come into fruition.
We may not like college, but we do like learning stuff.
Yes.
And even though we touched up on that before, I'm just going to mention now have our brand new page on our website talking about all the books and descriptions, and we will have more books coming up. And we want to hear from you. We want to hear what kind of books you recommend because we want to keep educating ourselves.
Right.
Because the more we educate ourselves, the more things, the more, I guess, this flower blossoms.
Right. JerusalemHub.com/books.
Nice.
Plug that in.
Do we have any questions from the audience?
We have one question on Twitter from Yehuda Makowitz.
Our new editor-in-chief.
I think he's smiling.
How important is time management? I'm gonna try to read it like he would read it.
Oh, please don't.
No.
Could you each give an example?
That's
not
the way
good
he would
grammar.
read it, the way he would read it would be, where is it?
What do you say? He said, could you each give in examples? You're really Israeli, man. Aren't you? What do you say to people who insist they don't have time? This is an amazing question.
Okay, I want to start with this one.
Go.
All right, go for it.
Okay, I know people have heard this one before, but I'm going to start off a little light, and then I'm going to punch you in the face.
Sounds bad.
You have 24 hours in the day. There is no such thing as no time. You are only going to do what you are dedicated to doing. And
24 hours in a day. Go to school.
You only
Remember that?
like I was saying before, when football season started, I had a full-time job. I was working on Jerusalem Hub. I was exercising daily, and I was going to football practice. And that is a lot to have on a whole load. I was also doing daily chores in my house, doing all that stuff, and I was still able to do it all. First things first. We've mentioned this in the last couple podcasts. Start waking up earlier. That'll allow you to have more to do with your day. if you start the day early, then you can kind of finish everything you have and realize how much more time you have, and you can start doing other things.
You start the chain of accomplishments.
Exactly. I'm like drawing I'm drawing like major blanks here, but that's where I would start. I'm gonna let them continue, and if I expound on what they say.
You know the what's the phrase? It goes, if you want something to get done, give it to a busy person.
Right. I mentioned that last podcast. Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go. That kind of.
That's not my quote, though. I'm not gonna.
No, it's not your quote. But I'm saying you did mention it. But the point is, though, that's what it comes down to. With people that are procrastinating all the time, they always have something else. They always have something else that they're doing, which is a reason why they can't do what they're doing. And somebody who has a stable schedule, they know what they're up to, they know what they have to do. If you give them something to do because they're accountable to themselves and to the people around them, I mean, obviously it can't be something stupid, but if it's important to you or if it's important in general, they're going to find a way to make it happen. That doesn't mean it's going to happen in 20 minutes. It might happen next week, but it's going to happen.
Right. For sure will happen. I'll throw something in here.
Go for it.
Time management is extremely important because you have a ton of stuff to do. The best way I do it is lists. I should be writing more lists. Usually I list them in my head. But for example, what I'm up to right now, like besides for holding a regular 9 to 6 job, just to pay my bills, and doing Jerusalem Hub, which includes managing the website, editing the podcast, taking care of content, reaching out to startups, keeping up with technology, reaching out,
touching me,
talking to these guys, doing this podcast every week. Besides for that, I'm married and I have a kid, so I have to also a newborn too. So usually when I get home, I'm taking care of him, and at the same time when I'm running to sleep, I usually have my phone here
and on top
messaging
of
these
all that,
people.
He's got a dog.
And I have a dog.
Don't forget about that.
And I pay bills. So like, my day starts around 4:35 a.m. because I have so much to do and there's not enough time to do it. And admittedly, I don't get it all done in one day, but being discouraged by that is also something. But really, what I've noticed that people who insist they don't have time, it's really because they're telling themselves they don't have time. Everyone has time. There's always time, and you create time by getting your tasks done faster and not procrastinating.
And also keeping the momentum going.
Yep.
Which is a big deal. Okay, I have 2 questions from Kalev. I'll just ask the first one either way. Hi Jhub, much love from your 4th team member. My question is...
6th now.
6th, you're the 6th one. No, but he's been calling himself 4th team member since the beginning.
He's like the 12th man on a football team.
Basically, on a basket. Okay, you know what?
Whatever.
We're benching him.
My question is, why won't you guys bring me on board? No, but seriously, what do you do if a core member of your startup isn't pulling his weight? Thanks as always. Okay, so I'm gonna touch up on this. Basically,
It's a heavy,
Can I start
it's a heavy
on that,
question.
actually?
Go
Yeah,
for it.
okay. This is really cool because I was actually thinking about this today. I was actually discussing this.
You have to
today.
address his first
We
question.
have-
Why we won't have him.
We won't have you on board.
Because you
Colin.
suck.
There
Hey,
you go.
He's
It's
been
just,
listening since the beginning.
Colin, we love you.
You can't be a listener, you have to be a doer.
Oh, so there's
tough
your
love,
challenge.
Tough
Kelly.
love.
Kelly's got to be a doer.
In terms of
If you could get my attention.
in terms of the actual question though, so some weeks we've had some weeks where one of us is taking lead and 2 of us are kind of sitting on the side, or 2 of us are taking lead and one of us is kind of like not sure what to do, how to fit themselves in, and it kind of feels a little bit discouraging. I'm not gonna lie. You see 2 other people, they're pulling their weight, they're kicking butt, and you're kind of like, what am I doing? And like you find what to do, but you're not really the guy in the middle of the guys. And it's a little bit discouraging, but the thing is, there's also weeks where you're the guy, and then the other 2 guys, or one of them, is kind of in the background sitting there scratching his head. So that definitely happens. It's not like something that we look at, I mean, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but at least I don't look at it this way, is, it's not like, oh, well, they're not pulling their weight, dump them. It's like, okay, well, I'm taking charge of this right now, that's what's happening. He's going to pick it up some other way. It's kind of like just having faith also.
If I can just add to
Yeah,
that, I think that not only that, like he mentioned, like every week it's always going to be a different person who's in charge, And it's also on that person to say like, okay, you do this and you do this, and that
Right.
person will do it because they want to pull their weight. They just don't know how to pull their weight.
Right.
So it's about kind of being that leader. Another thing that I want to say is that we kind of touched up on this before. We were mentioning how we were beginning to realize what everyone's strengths and weaknesses are. We've kind of cycled responsibilities.
Stopped again.
No!
It's cycled responsibilities.
You got me wailing like a child. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're beginning to realize what other people's strengths and weaknesses are. We're beginning to like help each other out along the way, and we're coming together as a team, which is why we have decided to work more together because because we get a lot more done easier, and we've also decided to kind of like have downtime together because if this is going to be a business relationship, then we might as well actually do that instead of saying it is.
And go clubbing.
I think as time goes, as we keep moving forward, that's going to happen less and less because people are going to realize like, oh yeah, he's got it handled, and if he wants me to help him, he'll ask me for help, and like it's going to work out that way.
It's a lot of patience too.
Yeah.
Because we, like, usually the core team is there because they all want to be there. It's not necessarily dragging their weight. It's more like being patient and saying like, encouraging them the whole way, or
True.
just making sure they stay involved as much as they can.
Yeah, it was a big part of my dream in this situation was the fact that I wanted to have a good group of guys working together, constantly motivating each other, because we know what it's like to go through that momentum shift when things are not quite working out.
Yeah.
And you need to have someone who's just as motivated, just as dedicated to be like, hey, I'll help you get along. Just do this, this, and this, and then we'll get things.
And eventually, that person or everyone learns how to pull themselves out of that low state and just move. Like it happened to me a few times, and usually I just pull myself up within the day, just because like I have no other choice.
Okay, so here's Khalib's last question. I don't quite understand it, but hopefully you guys understand it better than I have. What's the most important aspect of a startup website, or how to make the best about? Oh, it's two different questions. Fine. What's the most important aspect of a startup website? And then his other question is, how do you make the best about us page?
Usability and understandability. If you could go to the website and within 5 seconds you know exactly what's going on, the website is successful. Period.
Okay, well there you have it.
Is that our website?
I hope so.
Yeah, there you have
Most bounce rates now are people have the attention span of
A goldfish.
a goldfish, and people usually are in and out of the site within 3 seconds. If you can hold them for at least 10 to 12 seconds, you are already doing a good job. Because the chances are if they're there for 10 to 12 seconds, they'll click on something and continue on their journey. So you need to be able to quickly and concisely explain what your website is about. This holds not just for a start, this holds for everything.
Okay, so that I believe concludes questions from the audience. Please keep them coming. We want to know that you're out there because it allows us to continue to do this, and it keeps us motivated and keeps us dedicated to our work. Now we're going to move on to, we like to leave you with a little bit of motivation. I was looking around for motivational quotes. I found one right now. If you guys have ones that you want to say as well, you're very welcome to.
Mm-hmm.
I think this one pertains a lot to this episode because we spoke to Yaron's father, who had a full career and has been through what we're now going through. And I'm just gonna say it. It's the master has failed more times than the beginner has ever tried. I think that's pretty powerful. Pretty powerful stuff. And that's basically what we're doing, and that's basically what our interview was about, and I think that kind of closes everything out.
Amazing.
Which brings us to our challenge. First of all, we want to hear from you. We want you to reach out to us because we want to shout you out because it helps us, like I mentioned before, it helps us continue to do what we're doing, and it helps you get out of your comfort zone. And with that being said,
And make more connections.
you know, let's take that quote that I just said. The quote was, again, the master has failed more times than the beginner has ever tried. There is something that everybody in the world, like I always wish I could do blank. I always wish I could climb Mount Everest. I always wish I could do this, that, and the other. Go through the preparations of doing that. That's our challenge to you. Just start. If you failed, then at least you made an effort, and you'll say, okay, this is where I have to stop, and which is basically what your father was
I have a
talking
more
about.
specific thing to do.
Oh, go for it.
There's a good one.
But do that also.
Get 5 no's from somebody this week.
Ooh.
What does that mean? You have to ask something completely ridiculous from somebody, from 5 people, and they have to say no. I've heard some really crazy
good.
stories.
So you're not saying go and try and get it. You're saying you're going to get a no. Your goal is
Your goal is to get a no. So meaning
great.
go to a pizza store, ask them for a free slice of pizza. I guarantee you they might give you a free slice of pizza. It's happened before. Another story, someone went up to a guy and said, "Oh, I like your BlackBerry." This was years ago when the BlackBerry said it. And he was like, "Can I have your BlackBerry?" And he said, "Sure." And he went and he got him a new SIM card too with it. Like, I know these people personally. They couldn't get no's. I even asked my dad one day, like, "Can I have 500 shekels?" And he reached into his pocket and he was about to give it to me. He was like, he knew what I was doing because I've done that before. He's like, "Oh, you tricked me," because he knew that I was trying to get a no. And he's like,
I like that challenge.
I'm gonna take that off for myself.
I like that challenge. Honestly,
get 5 no's.
Although I will say that it's probably a lot easier to get 5 no's in Israel than it is anywhere else.
No, all these stories were in Israel.
Oh, okay, then I'm wrong.
All right.
Okay, I like
Awesome.
that challenge.
That's
Good
amazing.
challenge. Please, and if you can put that in your Instagram stories or your Facebook stories, and you can tag us in it, we will mention you.
Take a video of yourself trying to get a no.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
watch yourself get a yes.
We want to see you doing that.
You know what? I'll take that one step further. If you do that,
Here we go.
If you do that on Instagram, you do a story of you getting a no, and you tag us, I will take you out to New Delhi. Boom, that's
Wow,
it.
that's
Done.
a really big commitment.
Yeah, hey, you know
If
what?
you live
It's
in
something.
Israel.
If you live in Israel. If not,
Okay, no, that's cool. Then you can meet one of the core members of the
yeah,
Jhub
there
team.
you go.
And maybe I'll tag along. No, I won't. I'm not going
And with that,
With that being said, this concludes episode 11 of the Jerusalem Audio Experience. Thank you very much, Jaren's father, Mr. Pact, for joining us. He gave us a lot of really cool information, really cool, insightful things. And yeah, we're looking forward to having more people on our podcast who want to be guests. If you're interested, let us know and we will get you on here.
let us know.
Yeah. with that being said, thank you very much for joining us, and that concludes this podcast.
And with that, we end.
Definitely the best.
Turn off.
Don't lie.
It's not turning off. And we're still live at 68 minutes. And let's do a pick for this.
That's a really long podcast.
Do you want to be in the picture?
No.
No, no, Mr. Pack. Do you want to be in the picture?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, why not?
Let's do one
Why still out?
because
Why not?
why not?
Hello.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. Gotta move out of the way.
Perfect.
Awesome sauce.
Hey,
That was a good
Jared,
episode.
can
Bye
you
bye,
do it for
people.
Ian from New Delhi?
Bye.
Oh my god, you're such a...
Hey, Shalom, can I sleep on your bed tonight?
No, you can't.